Yeah, that's it. Thanks, brother. Okay? It's all right? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Rahanjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Rahanjana Yamuna Tihira Vanachari Yamuna Tihira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Rahanjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Rahanjana Yamuna Tihira Vanachari Yamuna Tihira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Rahanjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Bol Hare Rama Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Nitai Gora Harimo Nitai Gora Harimo Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Bhakta-Acharya Stotra Santa Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Galadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Ganga Mai Ki Harinama Sankirtan Ki Nitago Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 20, Text 38. Mudhi Bharadvajam Imam Bharadvajam Brihaspate Yato Yad Uktava Pittaro Bhadravajas Tatastvayam Mudhe Bharadvajam Imam Bharadvajam Brihaspati Yato Yad Uktava Pittaro Bharadvaj Tatastvayam. Anybody can have a go. Mudhe Bharadvajam imam Bharadvaja Vrijasate Yato Yad Uktva Pitaro Bharadvajas Tatastvayam. Come on, anybody can have another go. One of the men, have a go. Yay! Mudhe Bharadvajam imam Bharadvajam Brihaspate Yato Yad Uktva Pitaro Bharadvajas Tatattvayam. Ladies. Bharadvajam eham Bharadvajam Brihaspate Yato Yad Yukta Pitaro Bharadvajas Tatattvayam. Bharadvajas Brihaspate Bharadvaja Advaspayam. Mudhe, O foolish woman, Bara, just maintain, Dvajam, although born by illicit connections between two, Imam, this child, Bara, maintain, Dvajam, although born by illicit connection between two, Brihaspate, O Brihaspati, Yato, left, Yat, because, Uktva, having said, Pitaro, both the father and the mother, Bharadvaja, by the name of Bharadraj, Tata, thereafter, Tu, indeed, Ayam, this child. Translation. And there's no purport. So translation by Srila Prabhupada. Brihaspati said to Mamata, you foolish woman, although this child was born from the wife of one man through the semen discharged by another, you should maintain him. Upon hearing this, Mamatma replied, O Brihaspati, you maintain him. After speaking in this way, Brihaspati and Mamata both left. Thus the child was known as Bharadvaj. So there's no purport to this one, and we go to the next verse. And I'll just read the English. Although encouraged by the demigods to maintain the child, Mamata considered him useless because of his illicit birth, and therefore she left him. Consequently, the demigods, known as the Maruts, maintained the child, and when Maharaj Bharat was disappointed for want of a child, this child was given to him as his son. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. From this verse it is understood that those who are rejected from the highest planetary system are given a chance to take birth in the most exalted families on this planet Earth. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, the 12th chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, entitled The Dynasty of Puru. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When I read that last verse, it reminded me of a play that we did in the 80s. And the play was called The Demigod That Fell to Earth. And it was a very funny play. Anyway, so here we go. This isn't what I wanted to do today was, because it's the final verse of this chapter, I'd just like to recap some of the things that happened in this chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, before we continue on to the 21st chapter, which is going to be then the start tomorrow. So, at first glance, these verses may seem, if you've read this chapter, a lot of these verses just seem to be a whole list of names, dry genealogy, this one was the son of this one, was the son of this one. But the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam never ever speaks anything mundane. So there is a purpose behind it, and each name, each lineage, each descendant carries divine meaning and purpose. Although we may not understand that completely, but each personality is of importance, or otherwise they wouldn't be noted in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. This chapter begins with the description of the King Bharat, the great devotee after whom the land of Bharatvarsha is named. Bharata renounced everything. He was a great king, but he renounced everything to pursue pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and his descendants carry forward that sacred current of dharma and devotion throughout time. So he set the standard. Bharat Maharaj set the standard. Srila Prabhupada often said that Bhagavatam history is not dry. It is a spiritual genealogy. So there is a spiritual component attached to it, a map of how devotion flowed through time, from one Maharaj to the next Maharaj, and so on and so forth. The Lord empowers certain souls in every age to perceive or preserve dharma or religious principles in the world. So that's not necessarily just in the Vedic culture, but throughout history, we've seen great souls come to try and keep on to preserve dharma in the world, to preserve righteousness in the world. This chapter reminds us that our spiritual family tree, oh, good on you, Vijay, thanks. I think I might need that today. Just pop it down here if you don't mind. Thank you, Jai Prabhu. This chapter reminds us that our spiritual family tree, because now that you're in ISKCON, you're in part of a big family. You're part of this Bhagavatam family, actually. You're part of it. This chapter reminds us that you're in a spiritual family that continues to this day through the disciplic succession, the parampara of ISKCON. So it's a progression all the way through. Just as Bharat's devotion shaped generations, Srila Prabhupada's faith and surrender continued to shape ours. So just as Bharat was the example for great kings and great dynasty, similarly, Srila Prabhupada set the standard for us to continue on that lineage. And when we look at the great acharyas now, the great teachers now within our movement, we can see that this legacy is being upheld. So chapter 20 of the 9th canto describes the lineage of King Puru, his descendants, and in particular the story of Dusmata and Queen Sakuntala and their son Bharat. It traces how the dynasty of Puru leads to the great Emperor Bharat and touches on his eventual renunciation. This chapter therefore combines both the genealogy record, so you've got the history of everyone, but in the same time, it's an illustrative story of royalty, duty, and renunciation, rather than pure philosophical discourse. So it shows you how kings behaved, how they were connected to one another, and so on and so forth, and ruled in a very just way. It's not that, and there's always royal intrigues happening within, a royal family, as we will see in the future. It's not that these royal intrigues just happen in Vedic times. We need only check out the recent news to find out some pretty sordid sort of things that are going on in the royal family of England. Disgraced British prince involved in unbridled sexual activities and exploits and cover-ups and eventually embarrassing repercussions. This was a prince. You see the prince all with all his finery and plumes and all that, everything taken away because of his nonsense behaviour. So it still goes on. The chapter begins by describing King Puru and his descendants in a whole list of names and personalities. When Dusmanta was hunting in the forest, this is how it starts off, hunting in the forest, he came upon an ashram and a sage called Kanva. And Sakuntala, the daughter of Vishwamitra and Mekhala, he married by the Gandharva Vidhi. So that's the way the marriage of a special marriage ceremony, a spontaneous marriage without formal ritual. So it was described in that chapter about that. Sakuntala bore the son Bharat, but initially when she was approached by Dusmata, the king refused to accept them because of some reason. There was some her standing in society or something, and so he rejected it. So then the Lord intervened, and there was a voice from the sky intervened saying that the father is one who discharged the seed and the mother is only the container, hence Dusmata must accept his son and wife. And so when he heard this voice, he said, yep, okay, I better do what the voice tells me. So if you ever have a situation where you don't know what to do, and there is a voice that comes from the sky and tells you you must do this, take heed and follow that instruction. So there's the example here that Dusmata must accept his son and wife. So Srila Prabhupada's purport in this says that Krishna is the loving father of all creatures. So he is the supreme father, and he takes full responsibility of each and every one of us. This is the beauty of it. A father has responsibility for his offspring, and we see that so nicely displayed here in Krishna consciousness in our temple. Fathers take on the responsibility and look after their children very nicely. So Krishna is the ultimate father. He is the father for all of us, and he looks after every one of us, every creature on this earth, every living entity. Krishna looks after them. Prabhupada gives the analogy of sugar for the ant, that the ant has enough to eat every time. It's interesting, I often wonder, do they ever get sick of just eating a particular food? Sometimes you see birds flying around every day in our place, and you see birds just picking at the same seeds. And if that was us, we would be thinking, God, is there a bit of variety? Maybe we can have something else besides seeds or something. But a bird is completely satisfied, always just having the same. So Krishna provides for even the ant and the big elephant. So Prabhupada was making that point in the purport. Then King Bharat, the son of Dusmata and Sakundala, Bharat became a great emperor. So as their son, he became a great emperor, ruling the 7 islands. Anybody know what the 7 islands are? The 7 islands? So they're all the different levels in the heavenly realm. And he was performing sacrifices, the Ashvamedha sacrifice, horse sacrifices, conquering various people. He traveled all over, probably to Europe and Asia countries and everything. The name Bharat is considered a preferred or traditional name now in India by many Indians, especially in cultural, historical, or spiritual context. If you hear Narendra Modi speaking, he will only refer to India as Bharata. So this is the impact that this great sage had. Bharata is mentioned in the Rig Veda and the Mahabharata. He was a legendary emperor noted there, and he was also the ancestor of the Kuru dynasty. So the land ruled by him came to be known as Bharatvarsha, or the land of Bharata. So India's constitution, this is an interesting thing, I just looked this up. India's constitution officially recognizes Bharata. Did everybody know that? So that is officially the name, an alternative name for India. It's a dual name situation. It reflects both, India reflects both the colonial aspect of India, and Bharata is the alternative name, and that is the indigenous identity, so this history of Bharata. So in the constitution, both names are valid. It's quite interesting when you read that. So eventually, Emperor Bharata realized the futility of attachment and renounces his kingdom and material power. So this is the great personality. When a person who is in extreme power can just walk away from it and renounce it. Who else in Vedic history was able to do that at the drop of a hat? Can anybody tell me? Huh? Yudhishthira Maharaj, who else? Parikshit. As soon as he was given the instruction, that's it. That's it. He gave everything up. So Bharata was the example here. And the chapter notes that his family and sons appeared to him as impediments to his spiritual advancement. So this is pretty full on, that now he just rejected them for spiritual advancement. The chapter records a disturbing incident. Now this is really quite a disturbing incident when I read this also, and some of you must have also been quite surprised by this. In the lineage there's a verse 9:20:36 about the demigod or the demigod's priest, Brihaspati, being attached to his brother's wife Mamta, who was pregnant, and he wanted to have illicit sexual relationships with Mamta, even though she was pregnant. And he forced himself on this lady. So this was really quite outrageous, really, that this great demigod, a great priest of all the demigods, would succumb to a sexual enticement. So the other day, Prabhu gave a really interesting class about this, showing how illicit sex life can also affect even the highest demigods, what to speak of us in this material world. His class was primarily about making sure that we are strong in our commitment to not fall down to illicit sex life. As we've seen throughout history, this is harder than we think it is. Within our short history of 50 years within the Hare Krishna movement, we've seen great souls fallen to this point of illicit sex. How do we deal with it? Now, in Prabhu's class, he was saying that we have to really be powerful and strong and resist the urge, the sexual urge that's within all of us. Especially, when it comes to illicit sex, we have to be very, very careful. But in the same token, we have to also be realistic. It was interesting that some years back, I had a really interesting discussion with Bhaktivedanta Maharaj. Everybody remember Bhaktivedanta Maharaj? Great devotee, wonderful devotee. He used to visit here in Melbourne, and he used to stay upstairs, and one day I was serving him, and he said, "Bhakta, come here, I want to talk to you about something." I said, "Yeah, okay, Maharaj." And he said, "Tell me, how do we deal within ISKCON with this illicit sexual issue?" He said, "To me, this is the elephant in the room. It's something that happens, but nobody talks about it." And here we see that Brihaspati, who was a great priest in the heavenly planets, is falling to this most heinous sort of illicit sex. This woman didn't want to have a sexual relationship with him. She was pregnant, and still he said, "No, I've got to have sex with you." So it's an interesting topic. It's a topic that we try to avoid most of the time in Krishna consciousness, but we shouldn't. In the early days, it was something that we're all subject to it, especially when we come to Krishna consciousness from a Western background. Maybe it's a little different from the Indian background, but basically speaking, from a Western background, we're coming from a very debauched and fallen condition. And then all of a sudden, we take on these vows: no gambling, no meat eating, no intoxication, and no illicit sex. And people go, "Uh-oh, that's a big one." And because we're very enthusiastic and very full of fervor, we all say, "Yes, I can do this." There are many Vaishnava groups, actually, that say only 3 regulative principles: no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication. The sex one will just leave. So we're left to, in the early days, in particular, we were left to our own devices. And sometimes a person, because of this pressure, it's a natural pressure within a human being, sometimes there was fall down, either between a young couple that couldn't maintain just having a sexual relationship with their partner for procreation, or by oneself. And so people felt incredibly stuck. And what Maharaj was telling me, how do we actually deal with this problem? Because no one will talk about it. No one will talk about it. It's like the elephant in the room, he said. It's something that is a realistic thing, and yet everybody keeps it to themselves. What happens when you keep it to yourself if there has been some sort of a fall down? Two things. If it's something that happens by yourself, straight away you become guilty. How could I do this? Oh, I'm so fallen. I promised to have no illicit sex, and yet I've fallen so badly. And so you keep it to yourself. I can't reveal this to anybody because everybody thinks I'm a pure devotee. I have to keep it very secret, hold it to myself. Don't let anybody else know. And what happens then? Psychologically, it starts eating at you. And then there's also the situation of illicit sex within marriage. Now, Prabhupada often talks about this. And in letters that he wrote to devotees, he clearly points out that if one partner in the marriage is hankering for sex life, the other partner should give them that opportunity. But, regulate it in one sense, but in the same token, in preference to that person either going somewhere else or going to a prostitute or something like that. Better that you keep it within the house and grow as you grow in your strength to be able to tolerate this urge. Sometimes what happens in a marriage, and we saw this many times within ISKCON, where a couple may have had some difficulty as far as this sexual urge is concerned. And instead of owning up to it, the partner says, it was her fault. She enticed me. She would look so attractive and everything that I just couldn't help myself. And so they demonize their partner and scoff off the woman, or vice versa. He's such a lusty devil, I can't handle him at all. So there is this real elephant in the room. Now, as we grow in Krishna consciousness, we have to be a lot more psychologically and emotionally and humanly accommodating. So if, as we've understood here, that even it can happen in the heavenly planets, if it happens here on this earth planet between one of us, and if you're feeling that there is some weakness in you, then approach a senior Vaishnava. Approach someone that you can have confidence in, that can help you through this, in a sense, material addiction. It's an addiction. It's something, because we're in this material body, we've been in this body for countless incarnations, over and over and over again. And it's this sex drive that keeps us bound up in this material world. So if you have that problem, then seek out someone that can help you. Instead of bottling it up in yourself, actually present it to someone. Present it to someone that you feel confident with, that won't share it with the whole of ISKCON. Oh, did you know that this Bhakta does? Oh no, really? That's the gossip column in ISKCON. So you have to find someone that you can actually trust and approach and say, Prabhu, I've got this problem. What do I do? Or, my wife and I have this problem. What do I do? And then, in all honesty, that devotee will guide you and help you slowly wean off this addiction, this temptation, this illicit activity. It's not that you can just give up like that. There were many times that a young brahmachari may have come up to me and said, Prabhu, I have a difficulty. I said, okay. And he was shocked that I didn't go, what? I said, yeah, okay. And he said, oh. I said, yeah, it happens. It happens within our society. It's a big vow that we take. When we come to Krishna consciousness, it's easy to give up gambling. I mean, we just had the horse race, we just had the Melbourne Cup. Who gives a damn about how much money you win on a horse? Or illicit vegetarianism. I mean, there's so much more beautiful things to eat as far as a vegetarian. It's not a big deal. And all those other things fall by the wayside. I remember when I first came to Krishna consciousness, we used to do Sankirtan down Ackland Street. Anybody familiar with Ackland Street? They got all these fantastic cake shops, right? So I used to love those cakes, the Jewish cake shops. And we used to do Sankirtan there. So in the beginning, it was just like, oh, there's those nice cakes. But I can't have those cakes. After a period of time, those cakes didn't even mean anything to me anymore. I didn't even feel anything for them. Oh, yuck. Because you knew what was in it. It was gelatin, made out of the hooves and bones of animals, and you just think, bah, don't want it. And then intoxication. The only things that I remember about intoxication was how rotten I felt afterwards. You guys may not have known that, but in the old days, prior to becoming a Hare Krishna, unfortunately, every now and again I got intoxicated. The next morning was what they call a hangover, and it's the worst feeling. It's just like, ugh. And so, so they're easy to give up. But this sexual enticement is something quite... So he was shocked. These brahmacharis were shocked. And I said, no, it's fine. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? Oh, Prabhu, I don't know. I have no idea how I'm going to deal with this. I said, okay, let's put it on a time frame. Can you go without this for a month? And he said, yes, I think I can do that. I said, can you hold true to this for a month? And he said, yeah, I can do that. I said, okay, I'm working with you. And he used to be walking here in the temple, and it was between him and me, nobody else. And we'd look at each other and I'd say, how's it going? Yes, Prabhu, we're okay. So that was 1 month. At the end of the month, I gave him a slap on the back. Good man, you're great, that's great. Do you reckon you can go for another month? Yes, I think I can. And so that helped him over this addiction and this. And then there'd be other times when he said, oh, Prabhu, I've slipped. It's okay, Prabhu. We come on, we carry on. The last time you were able to do for 2 months, you reckon you could do that again? Yes. So it's a progression, it's a growth. And that person developed, and he is still a brahmachari, and he's strong. I won't tell you who it is, because that's between him and me. And similarly, there have been married couples, that have had the same difficulty. And they think, oh, what am I going to do? And just take it easy. Same principle. Slowly wean yourself off this. And eventually, time actually heals everything as well. As you're getting older, just like the cakes in the cake shop, as you're getting older, the same sort of thing happens with this drive. You think, oh God, really? It's boring. So you just let it go. And that's the material world. So this is what Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was saying. So out of all this chapter, with the genealogy and Puru Maharaj and Bharata and everything, this verse that Prabhu was dealing with is so important for us as devotees within ISKCON at this point of time. So I just wanted to mention that in particular. So this episode includes the genealogy narrative to illustrate the degeneration of a dynasty, that the moral principles slip down. From the recent news, as I mentioned before, there is a royal order in Britain, and it's like, really? They don't hold on to any sort of comparison to Bharat Maharaj's rule. And so anyway, also the naming of the child born from such illicit connection. The mother Mamta feared being forsaken by her husband, giving birth to a Dvaja, an illicit son, and the demigods gave him the name of Bharat Dvaja to the child. So near the next chapter of this verse, in 9:20:33, The realization of Emperor Bharata, his kingdom, his family, all appeared to him as impediments to his spiritual growth, and he renounced them. So this renunciation thing is also there for us. We have to give up our attachment to our children. And some people may say, yeah, but I love my kids. Doesn't mean that you stop loving your kids. When you finally renounce your children, you actually are doing the best thing for them as well. It's just an internal renunciation. It's not that as you're getting older in your retirement, you go, don't you come near me, you know. It's more that you love them even more from a renounced point of view. I'm not attached to you. I see you more as an individual that's come through me. You don't belong to me, but you came through me. And so you help them in their devotional career. So this is a very important lessons that we learnt in this chapter. The duty of progeny, the emphasis that the father who discharges the seed is responsible for the son and shows Vedic understanding, paternity, duty and lineage. When you're a father, be a good father. Really look after your children. Be the head of the family in one sense. It's kind of wrong to say the man is the head of the family, because behind every man is a good woman. And she helps that. So Bharata is described as partial expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even in the world of royalty, duty, even today there is a spiritual potential. So Bharata was an expansion because of his greatness. When you see something great, you can see it as the potency of the Lord emanating through that. When you see something great. I remember Bhakti and I went to the Vatican recently. Oh, not recently, a few years ago now. And we saw the Pieta. Anybody seen the sculpture by Michelangelo, the Pieta? The form of Lord Jesus in the lap of Mother Mary? Well, that's an empowered, spiritually empowered thing, sculpture. Just amazing. And there are many, many things like that. So there's spiritual potency even in today's society. Recently, everybody knows that I'm involved with interfaith. I deal with different faith traditions. And one very notable thing that happened, which was spiritually potent, is the fact that the new Pope, Pope Leo, who's the head of the Catholic Church, and King Charles, who is the head of the Anglican Church, the Church of England, met together in the Vatican and had dialogues and prayed together. Now this hasn't happened for 500 years. 500 years. When King Henry VIII, everybody know King Henry VIII? Jolly old King Henry VIII, he's the big guy, you know, that killed all his wives. He fixed up the renunciation problem really easily. Okay, I renounce you, cut your head off, that's it. But he got somebody else. But, so King Henry VIII said, I've had enough of the Catholic Church, I'm forming my own church. And so this is where the Church of England actually came about, Anglicans. The Anglicans were the majority of colonialists in India, by the way. So the Anglicans and the Roman Catholics, after 500 years, finally got together and actually prayed to the Lord together. It's an astounding interfaith thing. So there is spiritual potential, spiritual potency still in today's society. So the impermanence, the other point that was mentioned in this verse was, in this chapter, was the impermanence of material power. After Bharat achieved great power, he viewed his family, sons and kingdom as obstacles to his spiritual advancement. His attachment. So he reduced his attachment. He didn't completely cut them off, he just reduced his attachment to them. Teaching that material success, family and status, though not bad per se, can become a hindrance in one's spiritual life. So the inclusion of the incident with Brihaspati, as I mentioned, that was also there, a demigod, a Mamta, shows that even demigods or higher beings can succumb to sense desire. Illustrates how lineage and power must be tempered by moral disciplines. We have to have moral disciplines. And then there's the point of renunciation. Again, it's mentioned, and the futility, especially of understanding that there is a higher goal. The other thing that was mentioned again was the role of providence, the voice of heaven intervening in dushmanta. Neglecting shows eventual justice or a higher law or upholding dharma. So Krishna is always in control. He always gives some direction if they're off the path. Krishna says whenever there is, in Bhagavad Gita, whenever there is a decline of religious principles, I descend myself. So then we come to today's purport. And today's purport was quite interesting, that Prabhupada said here. And I'll just repeat the verse itself. Although encouraged by the demigods to maintain the child, Mamta considered him useless because of his illicit birth, and therefore she left him. Consequently, the demigods, so here we have the Maruts, the demigods, maintained the child, so they looked after the child. And when Maharaj Bharata was disappointed for want of a child, there's the whole history of that as well. This child was given to him as his son. So this is an arrangement by the demigods. And then Prabhupada puts in this verse. From this verse it is understood that those who are rejected from the higher planetary systems are given a chance to take birth in the most exalted families on this planet. So it's really interesting where some of you have come from, right? We may think that this is the first time we've had contact with Krishna consciousness, but actually it's highly likely that in your previous birth you were a demigod. Some of our children, especially our children, our second generation, perhaps are, in a previous birth, they're demigods, were demigods. Prabhupada actually said that also from the Bowery when he was coming to Krishna consciousness, because when you think about it, how is it? It's just such a miracle that Prabhupada went to the most degraded place on earth, the Bowery in New York. Has anybody ever been to New York and seen the Bowery? It's improved now, but when I've seen films of the Bowery, it is a dump, it's a slum, and people are drug addicts and intoxicated and completely bewildered by life. But anyway, that's where Prabhupada, and he drew out these devotees that completely accepted everything he said and dropped all different attachments. And Prabhupada actually said, they have come from the heavenly realm to help me. They were devotees in the past from the heavenly realm, they've come to help me. So Srila Prabhupada emphasizes the great opportunity of a human birth. We sit here in these human bodies. From this verse it is understood that those who are rejected from the higher planetary systems are given a chance to take birth here in this material world. And sometimes they are come from the most exalted families on this planet. Okay, so I want to get an example, a current example of someone who came from a most exalted family and who is helping ISKCON. Can anybody tell me anybody who is coming from a most exalted family? Have a think. Huh? Ambarish Maharaj, Prabhu, you know, from the Ford family. They're like dynasty, you know, they're like the rulers, they're like the, are we okay, Prabhu? It's like, they are like royalty. You know, we may have royalty as far as the King and Queen of England or the King and Queen of Holland or wherever, but real people like the Rothschilds and the Fords and all these great families are even more important than the royalty. So Ambarish came from that family, and look what he did, and look what he's doing. Initially setting up the program in Dallas, is it Dallas? Where they've got the, Detroit. First setting up the temple there with the beautiful diorama exhibits. That was just amazing when we found out about that. And then his contribution of $30 million to the TOVP. And now again he's infusing, again, millions and millions of dollars into the completion of the TOVP, which will be opening next year. So it's a wonderful thing on Prabhupada's 50th anniversary of his disappearance. So these great souls, they come. In the Vedic worldview, the environment in which we grow up in has a profound effect on spiritual development. Srila Prabhupada in his Bhagavatam purport often emphasizes that a child born in a family of devotees has a natural exposure to devotional practices. When our kids become born, they're straight away hearing the holy name, they're straight away offering prayers, performing rituals, deity worships at home, associating with saintly people when you have Bhakti Vriksha groups. The kids are there and they're seeing these great personalities always coming to their home. So the environment automatically plants seed of bhakti in the mind of the child. So not only have you got a human birth, which is as rare as anything, but you also have this child that's coming to you who's coming directly from the heavenly planets to take up Krishna consciousness. So the environment plants a seed of bhakti in the mind. So from a very early age, the seed of bhakti is planted in these young kids' minds. And Prabhupada gives the analogy, it's just like being born near a river. If you're born near a river, you're going to get wet. So in the same way, if you're born in the family of devotees, you're going to become a devotee, one way or another. So Vedic psychology teaches that life is influenced by samskaras. Samskaras means, different abilities, mental impressions accumulated over previous lives. So being born in a devotee family is considered the result of good samskaras. You've done previous good works from the past devotion. Or otherwise, how is it possible? In a sense, I sometimes review my own life. How is it possible that from this mundane life of a Western boy coming from Europe, coming to Australia, being intoxicated, and doing all the nonsense things that people do in this culture, in Australian culture, that when I got in contact with the devotees, all of a sudden my mind was just like, oh, this is what I want. It was interesting. I've got an opportunity at the moment to write an autobiography, because Bhakti and I have now been devotees for nearly 45, 47 years. And I thought it was appropriate that we start to hear the history of the second generation, those devotees that came after the Prabhupada disciples. What happened when Prabhupada passed away and what we did after that. And all the turmoil that happened and the different changes and the growth and all that kind of thing. So I'm writing an autobiography. It's quite funny. Hopefully it'll come out very soon. And one of the things was the impact that devotees had on my life. Although I was searching for most of my life for truth, the impact of the devotees was just so astounding. And in the early days, it was just quite unusual, really, to be influenced so much. But one of the most profound things that I remember that set off a chain of reaction was we used to come to the temple, and one day, and this is why this festival is so important to me personally, one day we had Julan Yatra, the swing festival. And my friend said, oh, why don't we go and check it out? Now, I had nothing to do with Krishna consciousness at that stage. It was a little bit of interest. I liked the vegetarian food, but really to say, I'm going to become a Hare Krishna, yeah, I don't know. So anyway, I said, yeah, no worries, I love the Hares, let's go and see the Hares. So anyway, the swing festival, it was my turn. There's a photo of it, and the photo is in the book. And there's a photo of me swinging the deities, backward and forward. And at that stage, you can do more than one push, okay? You could be there for a little while. Like about 30 people in the temple. So I'm swinging the deities, and the deity of little Radharani's eyes caught my eyes. Backward, forward. And I just became, even thinking about it now, I get goosebumps. And I just thought, my God, you're so beautiful. I want you in my life. And that was the end. So Radharani's mercy. So this was from a past life, from for sure, somehow or another. So we're born in families, but somehow or other it's a result of good samskara that we have this devotion. So the early exposure to Krishna consciousness, the influence of examples, seeing our parents being really good devotees and so on and so on, guidance and protection. This is a tremendous advantage because spiritual life becomes natural rather than something forced or earned in later life. It becomes natural. For a kid growing up in Krishna consciousness, it's natural. It's just a natural thing. Yeah, we're devotees. Live with it. Deal with it, you know. So Srila Prabhupada describes this as a golden chance to serve Krishna from the very beginning of life. These kids, our kids, have such an incredible chance. Prabhupada said a golden chance to serve Krishna from the very beginning of life. Now, as a parent, we have to remember they come through us, they don't belong to us. So we have a duty to actually nurture with gentleness, with love, with affection, with patience, to actually let that child grow into a devotee. So the question may ask, and this is what we ask ourselves actually, what if we provide all that and still the child doesn't take to devotional service? Now we're in the same situation. We brought our children into Krishna consciousness. We did the samskaras. We did the proper way of bringing a child in by chanting rounds before we actually have sexual intercourse for procreation. And yet, our kids went to Gurukul, our kids had the association of Vaishnavas, our kids had everything. And yet when they turned teenage years, they drifted off. To the extent where our son won't even talk to us, has completely blocked us out of his life. This is such a tragic thing for us. So one day I asked actually Burjan Prabhu, I said, Prabhu, you know, like, we have this situation. We tried our best, and yet they've been attracted by the allure of material enticement. And he said, Prabhu, you have to understand, they came from demigod life. And that enjoying spirit of demigod life overruled them. They wanted to enjoy. And so he said, but don't mind. He said, maybe later in life, they will again turn to Krishna consciousness because of what you gave them in the beginning. And it's that instruction from that senior Vaishnava, that really great personality, that has kept us strong in the understanding that yes, they may be at the moment a little bit distant, but we have that opportunity to think that they will still come to Krishna consciousness in due course of time. So then the other responsibility. So a parent has responsibilities, but guess what? You kids also have responsibilities. You have major responsibilities. Interestingly, the Vedic texts also note that with this blessing of being born in a devotee family, right, comes responsibilities. You have a responsibility as well. One born in a devotee family must take advantage of the devotional atmosphere. Your own independent self, you have to take advantage of it. You must avoid wasting time on material pursuits. It's not that we don't have some material pursuits. It's good to have hobbies. It's good to learn musical instruments. It's good to play sport, but not that you become overawed by these pursuits. This is for our kids. I'm talking to the kids here, okay? So you have to remember that. Don't become too absorbed in material things. Just maintain a really good balance between spiritual and material. Avoid wasting time in those pursuits and continue the tradition of devotion and benefiting future generations, understanding the position that Krishna has given you. Remember in this verse, there was the voice from the sky and saying, hang on, you have to do this and this. Well, through the Bhagavatam, it's the voice in the sky saying, hey, make sure that you're doing your proper thing because you are the future of this movement. You are the continuation of this genealogy. You are the strength of what's going to turn into Krishna's beautiful abode, Satya Yuga within this material world. 10,000 years of Satya Yuga within this material world. Sometimes we look at the material world and think, my God, it's just getting worse and worse by day. They're wanting to control us through AI. They're wanting to do this. They're wanting to do this. You can't control this. They're controlling our food. They're controlling our water. They're controlling everything. And who are the ones that are controlling? It's demoniac people, only interested in material things. And yet somehow or other, within all this mass of materialism, there is the Hare Krishna movement. And Prabhupada's prophecy, that this, and not only Prabhupada's prophecy, but also all the Acharyas' prophecy, that for 10,000 years, this is going to blossom into a Satya Yuga. And you're part of it. You're the ones that are going to bring that further. Not us, it's your generation, and your children, and their children. So we must take advantage of this devotional atmosphere. So being born in such a family is like being entrusted with a sacred legacy. It's both a blessing that you came, but it's a duty as well. A royal or wealthy family provides comfort, palaces, money, power and influence and everything, and these are external and temporary. Every rich person dies with nothing on. He hasn't got a sausage, nothing. Everything is taken from him at the time of death, him or her. Could be Bill Gates, it could be whoever. When he ultimately dies, he has nothing. Everything is taken from him. So riches are not the answer. Spiritual wealth, Krishna consciousness, is eternal, whereas material wealth is temporary. And even if we may not make it fully to be a self-realized Krishna conscious personality that goes back home, back to Godhead, the demigods welcome us and everything. Not the demigods, but we don't want the demigods welcome us. But the spiritual agents come from the Lord and welcome you. Come on back, Krishna's waiting for you, and take you by the hand. The spiritual master takes you by the hand and you go to Golok Vrindavan, and Krishna's over in the hill and he comes running over to you. Oh, you finally came back, and he gives you a hug and it's all over. That's what we're after, but that may not be the case. We may have to come back a couple of times. It doesn't matter, but just remain steady. So there's no loss. Whatever you do now in this spiritual movement is like money in the bank. Everything that you do is just like money in the bank, and you get more and more credit, pious credits. So even kings and rich people who are surrounded by envy and greed and sinful behavior, but a devotee is never ever have that. Being born in a devotee family automatically means protection from sinful habits. You're automatically protected because a child sees in their parents as devotees humility, service, devotion, and they model themselves after that. They see mum and dad are happy worshipping the deities. They're happy, they actually get great joy in worshipping their home deities, doing offerings, reaching out to the broader community, either through teaching, preaching, kirtan, prasadam distribution, and they see how happy mum and dad are, then they think, I want what mum and dad have got. And they see their friends who are non-devotees, and the father is an alcoholic, the mother has some trauma, and they think, I don't want that. I've been so fortunate to be in a devotee family. So this is what we have to strive for. This is what we are seeing through these chapters of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. This is like being born in a safe harbor. When you come into a devotee family, you come into a safe harbor. You know, like when the boats come in, it's a safe harbor. But when you're born to wealthy royals, materialists, you're born in a sea of turbulence and temptation. So we have to actually really appreciate where we are. So in short, a royal wealthy family birth satisfies temporarily material needs. A birth in a devotee family satisfies the needs of the soul. So Vedic texts consider that the highest blessing of all is to take a human birth, because it sets the stage for spiritual life from the very, very beginning. So I'll stop here. Yantara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask on these topics? Yes, Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhu,
Very
thank you
welcome.
for the nice class. Prabhu, you mentioned how when we're born in a devotee family, we have the responsibility to balance out spiritual and material and be able to be steady on the path. So sometimes we see we struggle to do our japa even though we are being brought up in this way, even though we have the taste for like kirtans, prasadam and everything else.
Prasadam is always
Yeah.
easy, isn't it?
The chanting sometimes can be a struggle. So should we pray to the Lord or should we just keep endeavoring to get that taste?
Yeah, you should endeavor. Your japa should never become a mundane thing. It's a really interesting thing. You can chant like a parrot. A parrot can also chant. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram. But what we have to do, you have to get a taste out of your chanting. So if you're not getting a taste out of your chanting, you have to ask around. Again, same sort of thing. You have to be open. Ask someone, why am I not getting a taste in chanting? Because you have to actually, with chanting, you have to yearn to be with Krishna. I mean, you actually have to yearn. You almost have to cry. Why aren't I with you, Krishna? I want to be with you, Krishna. So when you really develop that mentality, then chanting takes a whole different other meaning to you. It becomes your real connection because Krishna and his holy name are non-different, absolutely non-different. His holy name is Krishna, so you're inviting Krishna. But your consciousness isn't able to realize that. So your prayer while you're chanting should be, I want to, there's this song sometimes when I'm chanting, the song from George Harrison comes into my mind. I only want to see you. I only want to be with you. This is what we have to pray like fervently. Why am I so connected to this material world? I only want to see you. I want to be with you. So that's the thing. Now, if we're all conditioned souls and we have some difficulties at times and we can't remember this all the time, don't beat yourself up over it, If you haven't done all your rounds sometimes, you can catch it up some other time, but don't beat yourself up on it. Like I've heard some Bhakti Vriksha groups are saying that children should chant their 16 rounds before they even have breakfast. This is a nonsense. This is not what Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada wanted you to chant with an open heart, with a loving heart. And if you can chant 2 or 3 rounds in a loving way, then do that. Better than being forced to chant 16 rounds or otherwise I don't get breakfast. This is a nonsense. That's not proper chanting. You have to yearn for Krishna. You have to cry for Krishna. You have to say, my Lord, I want to be with you. I only want to be with you. I don't want to be with anybody else. You're my life and soul. That's how you actually start to pray. When you have that, then that chanting becomes so attractive. I'm again with Krishna. Does that make sense? So don't be put off by it, And don't be too hard on yourself. And if you're having problems with it, again, don't bottle it up by yourself. Find a friend, find someone who you can trust, reveal your mind to that person, and they will help you. And Krishna will help you from within. Just as in this chapter we heard about the voice from heaven, Krishna will talk to you within your heart. Krishna will talk to you. Krishna is right there, and he wants nothing more than you to come back to him and love him. So it'll happen. Is that okay?
Thank you so much.
Jai Prabhu. Mataji, you had a question? Just.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thanks for the nice class. Prabhuji, when the whole topic was very interesting.
The what?
The whole topic of especially how
the chapter is really interesting. Yeah.
And I was just curiously read the next few purports and translations this morning. Just want to see where Prabhupada is directing us.
Right.
Then I understood now that how it was going towards the Pandavas and the
next section is really good. Ranti Dev is quite interesting.
Yeah,
that's renunciation to the max degree, but anyway,
yeah.
I'm not giving the talk on that one.
So, in a few weeks back, I heard a lecture of Srila Prabhupada, and he was saying that when you focus that lust, anger, greed towards Krishna, that can become better. But I was just also contemplating how we can direct these things towards Krishna.
How we can directly...
Yeah, like how we can, like he was saying, like you have a desire to enjoy here. I'm just trying to find the right word, like, turn that towards Krishna. That's what I was trying to understand. So how we can do that, like when it comes to lust, anger, greed, these things, if we can direct them towards, like putting that in the Krishna.
How you can dovetail that to Krishna?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, you just have to become really enthusiastic. Prabhupada said that in Krishna consciousness, the driving force is enthusiasm, utsaha. And so you have to be very enthusiastic in your Krishna consciousness. So anything that you do is directed towards Krishna. So you work for Krishna. There's an interesting, I've got to give a talk tomorrow at the Wyndham Centre. And I'm doing it on chapter 4, where Krishna says you have to work for me. So it's whatever you do for Krishna. You put your whole heart and soul into whatever you do. And then when you have that, those other negative elements will not affect you as much. Everything will wane off. All those impediments to your devotional service will eventually just drift away, and you wonder, where did that go? Just like the cupcakes in the windows down Ackland Street, after a while they're just immaterial, not worth mentioning. So in the same way, all these anarthas, these unwanted things, will drift away. And you just pray to Krishna. I don't want this in my life anymore. I want to be strong. I want to be steady. I want to love you. I'm working for you. And you may be working for a boss in your work situation, but you're never working for a boss, because Krishna is the boss. And as long as you see the work that you're doing as service to Krishna, then, and you give some of the reward back from your hard-earned labor for the boss, then Krishna becomes really embedded in your life, and you won't sway from that. Does that make sense a little bit? Maybe we can discuss that a little bit later on. Yeah. Any other comments? Gentlemen, any comments or questions at all? Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. We just spoke about a family, right? So what if two people in the family, a husband and wife, one is a devotee and one is a non-devotee, then the dynamics gets very tricky, right? How?
Say it again, just slowly.
So let's say a family, a husband, wife, one partner is a devotee and the other partner is not a devotee.
Okay. Yeah.
And everyone has their own rate of growth, right?
Yes,
so progress is different. So, but it gets very difficult for both in a way. So how do we deal with such a situation?
With tolerance. With tolerance. He tolerates you in your devotional career, you tolerate him in his nonsense activity, if that's the case. But you be supportive, and slowly you develop your love. If you love each other, right, you've come together and you're married, renunciation doesn't mean that you just ostracize him, or, you work with him, understanding that he's a soul also, and somehow or other Krishna has made the arrangements for you to be with him, if that's the case. I'm not saying that that's the case.
Not in my case. Yeah.
No. Okay. But if that's the case, then somehow or other you've been sent by Krishna to help him in his devotional life. So if nothing else, you can present prasadam to him. You can have some music that's in the background, which is the holy name. And I've seen so many times devotees in that situation where the husband and wife, it's usually, and this is synonymous with all religions in the world, the woman is more dedicated to the religion than a man is. And so many times the woman is devout, but the man is just like, I don't care for this sort of stuff. And I've seen so many times that the man, by the influence of the woman's devotion, slowly also becomes a devotee. It may not be in this lifetime, but you've set up a really good situation for him in his next lifetime. You have a duty to that person as well. Krishna has made that arrangement somehow or another, that I can preach to him. As long as he's not stopping you from your devotional life, as long as he's not stopping you from your devotional life and respects what you're doing, then you should encourage him and give him more strength like that in due course of time. Bhakti, you may have it. Can you take the microphone back?
Can you address a little bit the point of if the one partner, has taken initiation and is following vows and the other one isn't? How do they work that situation out?
Yeah, again, you have to be very moderate in your understanding, Prabhupada often said in that case, you have to look after your spouse. So you have to be very normal. Krishna consciousness is not a fanatic institution. We're not fanatics. We deal with things in a normal way, in a way that is conducive to growth for both parties. So you just simply do it in a natural way. Prabhupada so often said, if your husband requires that you have a sexual relationship, then give it to him. Then give it to him, and then, eventually this will slow down and things, you just encourage the growth. So it's just being very honest and open about things, instead of being negative about it, The main thing is understanding that this person has come into my life, I'm a devotee, it's now my duty to somehow or other encourage that devotee, that person in their devotional life as well, one way or another. You have the example, this is an example of Pishima, Prabhupada's sister. Her husband was really not interested in Krishna consciousness, but yet she served him diligently, looked after him and cared for him, even cooked for him meat. So this is sometimes, the thing that happens. And similarly, like we may say, my child is not, from the other point of view, my child isn't a devotee, although I've done everything. Even in Prabhupada's own family, none of his children are really interested in Krishna consciousness. Even at Founder-Acharya's, some of his children were not interested in God consciousness. So you can expect that to happen. But just by your association and your love and generosity and giving of Krishna consciousness and your example, all goes well for their next lifetime. All goes well for their next lifetime. Even our families, our families that we, like for us in the Western world, my family are not interested in Krishna consciousness at all. And they're meat eating, but yet they respect Bhakti and me. And in their next lifetime, they're going to make advancement. My parents also will make advancement because of the fact that we are devotees, trying to be devotees. It was interesting, just my brother who recently passed away, was a real materialist, full on. But he always did our accounts for us. He knew us, we were devotees, and he always did our taxation for us, no charge, right? And he passed away. But before he passed away, his wife came to me and said, would you be so kind as to do your Vaishnava rituals for him before he passed away? So I thought, just see Krishna, the voice from above is just giving us this direction. So I was able to anoint his body with Ganges water, tilak, tulsi, pray to him as he's going, and within hours after Bhakti and I had done this ritual for him, he passed away. Guess where he's going? In a demigod body, and then in the next opportunity he comes back as a human and possibly a devotee, gets the opportunities that we've had. So this is our duty, as devotees we encourage others, lift others up. We never put people down, we lift people up all the time. Does that help? Hi John, Haribol. Any other comments or questions, Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
And actually, it's interesting that point that you made about, forcing children to chant rounds before they even have a drink of water and have breakfast. When you're saying that, everything that we are meant to do is meant to encourage others.
Yeah.
So really what we're meant to do is to develop a taste for the chanting within the children. right? Now, if they're forced to do something that, number one, they don't want to do anyway, and then on top of it, oh God, I can't even have breakfast. How much do you think they will love the chanting? Or do you think they'll start to hate the chanting?
Yeah.
Because I have to do this before I can eat anything.
It's rebellious.
So what's it going to instill in the heart? That's the main thing. What are we instilling in the heart of people?
Yeah, thanks, Bhakti. All right, Prabhus, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. How did it go, Prabhu? It was all right?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
it was only at the tail end of it, but it was good.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Can I ask you a question? I didn't want to publicly ask, but I've got this question in my mind.
Uh-huh.
When we read Bhagavatam, so there are some parts of it talks quite explicitly about sex and all that.
Mm.
And when we give classes here, kids also come sometimes. So I have this doubt, are we overexposing them to at least sometimes, sex? Because we don't have any control who sits in the class, right? So, it could be different age groups where they are ready, it could be age group where they may not be ready. And with these descriptions...
Yeah, just like the Brihaspati thing.
Yeah. I mean, not just specific this topic, I'm just saying in general.
In
right?
general. Yeah, it's up to the parents to, the Bhagavatam has to be spoken. And sometimes the message may be a bit difficult, but generally speaking, the kids, it either goes straight over the top, that they can't really understand, or otherwise it's a duty of the parents to actually then take them aside and say, now, you heard the Bhagavatam class today, what do you think about that? What is that, and then they'll start asking questions, and that's your duty. I mean, say for example, my parents never, ever, ever discussed anything to do with sex. My father wouldn't even. And then we had like a parent-teacher, a sex education talk at school, and my father reluctantly went to it, right? And they were talking about all the different things and everything. And then at the end, we were driving home, and he said, "So, did that make sense to you?" I said, "Yeah, I knew this all the time." He said, "What?" So you'd be surprised what kids know and what kids don't know.
Yeah,
But
as
it's
a
up-
parent, you may feel like they are innocent, but they are
Yeah,
innocent,
believe
but
me,
they are
yeah. But the main thing is to have open discussion with your people, with your children. And if something like this comes up in Bhagavatam class, the general population have to hear these instructions from Bhagavatam class, else it wouldn't be in the class. Now, a child either can understand it, or their mentality is that it's beyond them, and they just ignore it. So the duty of the husband or the wife is to take the child aside and say, in Bhagavatam today, Bhakta Prabhu was speaking about such and such. Does that make sense to you? Did you understand what he was saying? Oh, no, I didn't understand what he was saying. Okay, leave it. But then others may say, well, yeah, actually, I understood what he meant. And I have sometimes this problem. They say, oh, really? Yeah. If they're honest. And then you can act on that. You can work on that. Because we're all human. You and I know what it means to grow.
We know, but yeah, I get it.
So you just have to be really gentle with them, and you can be as honest as you can. Be honest with your kids, So does that?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hi, Mataji. Yeah, sure.
So, probably due to your health issues and because of the health issues, you're not able to do service like that you want. So, but our heart is yearning for doing service,
Yeah.
but the health is not permitting it. So, how do we overcome that, that contradictory situation? Your health is
What service can you do?